So, I don't really like a lot of retellings in comics when it comes to, new stories on characters. I'm not the biggest fan on comic retellings because it really does feel like, no, my version will be the definitive origin. No, my version will be the definitive origin. It's like when we keep doubling back or trying to add on to, the Killing Joke and try to have, rub off that Alan Moore wizard stink of fame on us for, Killing Joke, or same thing with Weapon X in Marvel Comics Presents, things like that. So I haven't really, and don't get me wrong, there are some really good retellings of character origins. There's really good ones out there, and they've been used and made the definitive origin. I mean, for one, it's gone without saying that, after Batman Under the Red Hood, Jason Todd's, origin, they cut out all the Superboy Prime shit and made it, no, he died, Joker killed him, and then Ra's al Ghul brought him back. We didn't bring up any of the bullshit from the Superboy Prime Infinite Crisis stuff. So there's that. But I always thought it would be kind of cool, this was something that was kind of spawning in my head for a bit, and thought this would be a fun story. This isn't a retelling of the origin, but more kind of a alternate setting. Because we've had a few retellings of Clayface's origin. But one thing that I've always noticed with Batman in the Clayface origin stories, he's never fazed by it. He's never, outright fazed by battling a huge clay monster. Because, here's the thing, Clayface is much different than any other Batman villain, or a vast majority of Batman villains. Batman usually battles villains who are psychotic, or just really good killers, or they're businessmen or gangsters. Clayface is very much apart in that Clayface is something that is someone that Batman doesn't battle on a daily basis. He's a metahuman. He's, Clayface is something that, Batman just can't punch. And it's something that's stronger than him, and he really has to play it smart when he's around Clayface. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to retell a new version of it. A new version of that initial encounter, kind of an alternate take on, Batman encountering Basil Karlo for the first time. So here we go. This is Batman, Shadows of Clay. So, here we go. So the story begins with Alfred, coming down to the Batcave because he hears the engine of the Batmobile, and a little signal goes off in the Wayne Manor, oh, Master Wayne's home. And keep in mind, this is this is a Batman who's Shadows of the Bat era. This could easily be, honestly, a Shadows of the Bat or Legends of the Dark Knight kind of story. Honestly, I would do this if I would do this as a Legends of the Dark Knight comic. But anyway, Batman comes, it's an early era Batman. He comes flying into the Batcave, and Alfred notices there's something wrong here, because it's covered in slime, but then he discovers it's clay, and Batman gets out of the Batmobile, and he's just he has a look on his face that Alfred's what happened? Because he's Batman is shaken. Bruce is trying to hide it, but Bruce is showing that he saw something that shook him, and now it's bothered him. And Batman basically goes, Alfred, I saw something that I wasn't prepared for. And he's and Alfred's what? I encountered a monster. And he's I'm sure you did, Master Wayne. You battle all these monsters, you battle all these monsters and insane maniacs. He's no, you don't get it. I fought a literal monster. And he tells him all the killings that happened, the Clayface killings as they're being called, and he says it was Basil Karlo, and I caught up to him, but then I went to punch him, and he turned into clay, and Alfred's I don't follow. You have to understand, this is early DC Universe, so metahumans aren't really well known yet. They aren't a massive commodity yet. And Batman, by this point, I would say, obviously he's encountered the Joker, he's battled Two-Face, he hasn't really gone up against anyone even like Solomon Grundy, who I did forget, like, yeah, Grundy's but technically Grundy's kind of an everyone villain, and if you really want to pull hairs, Solomon Grundy is more of a Alan Scott Green Lantern villain than anything else. I know if Chris is watching, the Mount Vernon kid's watching, he's going to be like, yeah. So, where was I? Yeah. So Batman is like visibly shook by what he encountered, because again, he's not he was not prepared for that. He's battled obviously, he's talked about like battling Penguin, Joker, Two-Face, and they're people, they're monsters in their own right, but I was not ready for that. Like, he talks about, like, there's Superman, like, obviously there's powered people, Superman, Wonder Woman, there's talks of other super beings out there, but, like, I never thought they would come to Gotham. That's the whole thing with Batman right now, is that he was just not psychologically ready for that. Of battling, because this is, like, again, early Batman, so he's just prepared to fight, like, gangsters, and now he had to evolve his combat to battle, like, criminals, and now you have a guy who can become Clay. And Batman wasn't mentally ready for that. And even like there would be a part in where Alfred's like, I've never seen like Master Bruce shaken like that. So whoever this Clayface is got him rattled. But knowing knowing Master Bruce, he's just gonna overcome it and get back at the field, because those killings are still happening. So there's another killing of another actor. And now Batman has to go to Commissioner Gordon and is like, yeah, it is what you suspected. It was Basil Karlo, but Jim, you have to understand, he's not human. And they're like, yeah, these killings are done by a madman. And Batman's like, no, Jim, he's metahuman. And they're like, oh, because now like even the Gotham Commissioner Gordon now has to be like, it's the same thing with Batman, where it's like, oh my god, we have a super being in Gotham. We are not built for that. So there is that moment where, like, Gordon's like, are you serious? And he's like, yeah, I punched him, when I hit him, he turned into clay. And there's something else, Jim. He can shapeshift. And they're like, oh god. So there is that moment of, like, this would very much be like a horror story, is what, like, if you haven't gathered already, this would be like a horror story for Clayface, where you don't know where he is, because that's kind of another thing that I don't think a lot of writers utilize a lot, that they don't utilize Clayface. Basil Karlo is like an actor, and like he's a shapeshifter, so he could be anyone, and if he studies them enough, he knows how they can act and their mannerisms. So this would just be kind of like a cool story where it's an early Batman encountering a super being for the first time. And yeah, he'd be like, yeah, I've encountered Superman, I met Wonder Woman, but I never thought I would have to contend. And Batman would even have that moment of like physical, like there'd also be this whole thing of like Batman comes to terms that he's human and he's battling a superhuman, so in his own city. And that's what really it is. What this would really be is that the main crux of this story is that behind the scowling and the shadows and all the cape and cowl crap, I'm just a man, and I have to contend with something that should not exist. That's really would be the core of the story, is talking about like, oh yeah, everyone talks about like, oh, Batman's not, Batman, encountering a metahuman, that's nothing. And that's what always bothered me with like Batman stories, when he contends with like, whenever he contended with Clayface for the first time, it's like, oh, that was weird. Anyway, zap, or, come up with something, because again, that's Batman. But like, I would really love to have a moment where like, Batman has that moment of, holy shit, that shouldn't be real, because again, it would be an era where super beings are still like coming out, and they're not, it's not going to be known like in a few years they're going to be everywhere, and this would still be an early Gotham who's like, yeah, the Joker's pretty fucked up, but at least Batman's there to punch him, or Two-Face sucks to be him, but Batman can punch him, Clayface, what the hell is that? And, like, that would be kind of the whole thing. And also, on the Clayface end of it, Clayface is still contending with, becoming this monster. But also, like, you see that, like, he's, like, I would have, like, news stories and social media, because, again, we have to, like, update the timeline every so often. And, like, Carlo would be like, oh my god, they're talking about me. Me! Like, I am finally noticed. I'm not just the monster in the movie. I'm a legit person. Like, they see me as Clayface, I'll give them a show. Something like that. Like, that's what I really like to do, is kind of do that dichotomy of Batman grappling with just a man. Clayface is like, I'm now gone from man to monster, but at the same time, I'm now fine. It's funny that I had to turn into a literal monster to get center stage. So that's how I would really play with this story. Like I said, if I could work at DC, I'd be like, hey, I got a pitch for a Legends of the Dark Knight miniseries. I got for you guys. Can I do it? And apparently at DC Editorial, they're like, yeah, fuck it, sure. That really does feel like DC Editorial sometimes. No offense to any DC writer who may or may not be watching this. Or editor, I should say. But anyway, so you guys tell me in the comments below, what do you guys think of this story? I know it's not really like a whole story, it's just kind of more of a concept, really. This isn't really like my typical fanfiction idea, it's more of a concept. Just comment below, let me know, did you guys like it, hate it? Other than that, hope you all enjoyed this. I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.